Welcome to another Velocity Juice podcast. I'm Flavia.
And I'm Delilah. So it'd be good to understand a bit more about your journey to entrepreneurship and how you came about setting up Velocity Group.
Yeah, so thank you, Delilah. So basically my career started actually in advertising back in the late 90s. So I did that for about 10 years. Then I went off to do an MBA in Switzerland. And then after that, I joined a company called Red Bull. And I was the third employee of that business. I guess that's when my entrepreneurial kind of spirit was born, if you like. So Red Bull was 3 employees at the time. And then we managed to grow that quite successfully. And then after that, I decided that I wanted to basically be an entrepreneur. So I did a lot of really quite appalling ideas, actually, I've got to say. Many failures along the way. But I cut my teeth through the experience with Red Bull. And then I then started various businesses, kind of looking at emerging markets in fund management. So everything from media assets to real estate to wind farms, private members club, and that's kind of led me to come to where I am with Velocity and backing that business back in 2016.
So why consumer?
So again, going back to my roots, so my roots were originally in advertising, consumer-based advertising, and I thought, would it not be a good idea to try and combine everything I've learned and bring it all together for what I think is probably, hopefully, my last career, and that is to basically set up a venture capital firm which offers marketing as one of the key points of difference and the reason why you as a founder should come to us, because venture capital is much more than money. It's got to be about working with the right people and for those people to offer you a skill set that will hopefully be symbiotic to what you're trying to do as a business. So Velocity is about obviously investing in companies, but providing that spirit of entrepreneurship and marketing skills to back those businesses and help them succeed. And so we have a very singular focus about the companies that we want to back because we know we can help them.
So what types of companies do you tend to look for that are deemed eligible for
So
Velocity?
we have a very specific focus in that we invest in what we call D2C, direct-to-consumer brands. And we we've actually coined our own phrase, which is called D2SME, so direct to SMEs. And the principle is that those businesses, either whether it's D2C or D2SME, they need to have digital marketing as a significant portion of their cash flows for them to be able to succeed. So that's the strict criteria.
I guess my question is, why do you think digital distribution is the most important thing for direct-to-consumer business?
Well, one, we know it. So again, I talked about the fact we've got 50-odd companies just on one portion of the group's perspective. And across those 50 businesses, it's between 30 and 60% of their operational cash flows attributed towards marketing. So it's a key aspect for success. That's also backed by another stat, which is quite astounding. So 40% of all venture capital in the world goes to Facebook and Google. So therefore, you need to get your marketing right. And if you can get your marketing right, you can succeed. There's another stat that I can quote, which is from stats. From CB Insights. So CB Insights is a US-based research group that year on year analyzes digital startup businesses and asks the CEOs, unfortunately, why did you fail? And 9 out of 10 times since we've been tracking that research, it's about not getting your marketing right. It's the biggest reason for failure.
Wow.
So you've got a huge expense. It's crucial for your businesses when you're talking about D2C and D2SME. So therefore, it's crucial to get that right. And that's what we can offer as a business through our structure.
And through that's why you set up Velocity Juice.
So Velocity Juice, good question, Delilah. So Velocity Juice came about, so we started the equity in 2016. And then what we noticed was, going back again, that for these businesses to succeed, a large proportion of their budget was needed for marketing, 30 to 60%. So we then suddenly thought, well, wouldn't it be great if instead of using equity for that marketing piece, why not use debt? And what that means is that you as a founder don't have to raise so much money, so you dilute less. And ourselves as equity providers, we get what's called leverage on our equity, which is what also we call non-recourse. So we're not trying to take your house or personal guarantees. So your equity works harder, the founders dilute less, so you get better returns. So it's a win-win for everyone. And Velocity Juice, the debt piece, is able just to provide debt through marketing data, which I can come on to explain if that would be helpful.
I guess what would be, really interesting for the listeners is when you look at our market, we here sitting in the UK is one of the most competitive consumer markets in Europe. Perhaps not as competitive as the US, but definitely one of the strongest. How can a new brand and a new founding team prepare to compete in this market? Now that you have the views of both equity and, of course, financing and working and building companies yourself.
So again, I think the UK is an amazing kind of, if you will, proof of concept for a global brand. So another stat. So basically, the UK market is second only to China in terms of online purchasing, and that's Gen Zs and millennial, and particularly as a target audience. So the UK market's a great test bed to then globally expand. And the thing about D2C or D2SME businesses is if the marketing is based on Facebook, Google, TikTok, whichever channels, those apply whether you're in Europe, Singapore, US, India. It's the same philosophy. So we think it's a very good test bed to actually to look at businesses that can potentially scale, which is what we look at. And the other kind of key aspect to the businesses we look at is that we have a very good ecosystem for startups in the UK. So we have, even during COVID, we had 500,000 new businesses launch, of which I think a vast majority were digital companies.
Yeah.
So, and that is basically due to the tax breaks that are available to companies in the UK, EIS and SEIS, which enable us to be very good at backing those companies. So one, you've got a great finance ecosystem, great entrepreneurial spirit. I think we're third only to the US and Israel in terms of digital startups. And, it's a great test bed because of the propensity of the target audience to use digital assets to then look at scaling globally.
That's really great to know. We're in a good market,
You didn't
right?
know that?
Of course I did. But today
For our listeners.
it's about our listeners, and it's
Sure.
about informing them how they can approach this.
What are your views on the growth of the D2C market?
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, I think increasingly the notion of digital and indeed other channels will only but continue to grow. There's no doubt about that. Now, for example, even if Facebook does, if you won bets on Meta and Facebook going down, there'd be someone else to replace it. It may be TikTok, it may be other channels, but the notion of actual marketing and marketing against data, which is what Velocity Juice does, is here to stay. And it will only get better. If I had, in my day at Red Bull, the ability to market to customers where I knew what the cost of the customer was, what the value of that customer was, I'd bite your arm off. Unfortunately, we didn't have that. We just had to do a lot of guesswork.
Wow.
But now we can measure against data, and the data never lies.
I agree with you that we're in a brave new world, and we've been here before. We had the recession in 2008, 2011, that sort of slump, and we've seen even then when Facebook and Google and everybody were a little bit younger as companies, performing still very well, so growing through recessions.
Yeah.
Some of the most
But back in 2008, when you
recessions.
have Facebook would make money. Now look at it. It's a
Yeah,
cash cow,
yeah,
right? So
exactly.
people were betting on it. Not, oh God, it's great that it's got
Yeah.
loads of users. How are you going to monetize it? It's the most sophisticated algorithm of all time.
I guess many of the investors, and obviously coming from quite a number of conferences, many of the investors are still very much puzzled on what is the role of debt for a D2C company or a B2C company that uses this digital distribution. What's your view on blending equity and debt?
It's really simple. So again, we've done our own analysis and research on this, but for a founder, it's crucial that you don't dilute too much. So what tends to happen, particularly now, you're going to be undervalued. So you're going to end up as a founder before you go to exit. Potentially, if you have multiple rounds, let's say you have 4 or 5 rounds, you'll end up with less than 20% of the business. That's not fair. It's not right.
Wow.
So we believe any founder should at least get 30%. You've done all the hard work. You deserve to make an exit. You deserve to change your life. Now, working with us, with the debt fund, it enables you to dilute less, and we're happy to come in very early on your life cycle. You need to have, a certain amount of criteria in terms of monthly revenues, cash flow, and all the rest of
Marketing
it.
spend,
But
yeah.
principally, we'll lend against your data. What that means on a like-for-like basis, you will end up with more than double the equity you'd have on a traditional funding round. So that must be appealing to founders, and we're passionate about founders making
It must
the
be
returns they
appealing.
deserve.
It must be appealing to the early stage investors. I mean, when I was on the early stage side, on the investment side, I was absolutely, completely blown away the fact that as an investor, you may end up with like 4 or 3% at an exit, and that's what you basically
Sure.
gamble your whole fund philosophy.
Yeah, so you'd have to expect on each funding round, as a founder, you'll dilute 20 odd percent.
But your investors do the same.
So yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. And the investors the same. So the same principle applies to the investors and the founders alike. So as I said, it's a 2.2x better return, like for founders and investors. So it's a
That's
really
something.
brilliant model, we think, but it only applies to the right businesses, and those are D2C or D2SME, where digital marketing is a significant component, between 30 and 60%. And also what we like to do is we lend against your margins, your payback period. So we want to make sure that you pay the loan through your profit, not eating into your operational cash flow.
Oh, yeah.
So we will lend anything between what we call a revolving credit facility between 3 to 12 months. That's how the system works. And the other bit that I think is super clever, for us at least,
Yes.
is that we will give you, let's say, we want to give you big loans, not like you may have heard of revolving revenue-based lending. So they typically rent 1.5 against your revenues. So you'll get, if you're doing like £50,000 of revenue a month, you'll get £75,000 worth of debt. We actually will look at your marketing data. Instead of giving you 75,000, we'll give you £2 million. That's going to change your business significantly. That's going to transform your value. And that's what we're trying to offer. And the reason we can do that is that we lend through a card system. So Flavia, unfortunately, we can give you £2 million. You can't go and buy a Ferrari. You're going to have to spend it on digital
that
marketing.
is so sad.
Unfortunately, I'm sorry.
Yes.
But you can't, exactly. But what you can do is you have to spend it through the channels we agree. And that money is spent on those channels. The revenue swept back on those channels. And then we then take what's owed to us. The rest goes back to your bank account. What that means, which crucially as well, is that we don't want to take your house, Flavia. We don't want to take assets off you. We just want to lend against your marketing data, which we think is really powerful.
I guess many founders, and UK, unfortunately, statistics again, it's actually one of the only countries in Europe where debt is always perceived as very negative. Especially within the tech side, we've been going through like 20 years of booming equities, seen as the primary way of capitalizing the company. You have been a founder. You obviously have been on that journey. How did you feel taking debt to finance specific elements of your business? How did you?
Well, I think it's a
balance it?
crucial aspect of it. And you make a very good point. I mean, I think, if you look at the US, they're very familiar with venture debt structures
Oh,
and
yes.
the like. And venture debt within the context of venture capital per se, it was 5% of total quantum. It's now 25%. It's a very good way to look at building your business for all the reasons I've touched on. But again, like an equity partner, you need to work with the right people. So you need to be comfortable. These people understand your business. It's a marriage after all, right? Whether it's debt or equity, it's a marriage. So you need to work with the right partners. And we have the same philosophy. We don't spend 24 hours giving you a loan. We'll spend a bit of time to get to know you, because it's about giving you, serious amount of money and building with you and continuing to build with your business. So again, if you want a 24-hour loan, go to someone else. But we want to get to know you. We want to then help you build your business, because if you succeed, we succeed.
Yeah, exactly. Build that partnership.
Partnership.
I know.
Yeah.
It's all about partnership.
Yeah.
It has to be.
Yeah.
Well,
It's a
business
marriage,
is
you know.
business is about people, and
And
it's
hopefully
about,
not a divorce.
hopefully not a divorce. Although it would be easier to divorce.
Maybe.
Yeah, potentially take.
You
a
have to
little bit
marry
less.
us, yeah.
Amazing. Well, Raj, I think it was really great to learn from your experience and
Thank
to
you
just
so
get
much, yeah.
familiarized with your story. And I'm sure that our
Thank you
listeners.
to Lila. What a pleasure.
Yeah, I'm sure
And
the
Flavia.
listeners.
Have a pleasure.
Yeah.
And yourself, yeah.